Okay. Yeah, I worked a little bit with the landscape.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We do have a quorum. We're missing a couple of our board members today, but we have a full agenda and an exciting one at that. So let's get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comment?
No, ma'am, we do not have any inside.
We can go ahead and move on to the consent agenda.
Yes, on the consent agenda, that includes minutes from several of our last meetings, as well as the financial report.
Okay, does anybody have a motion to approve? Financial report.
Motion to consent.
Second. Okay, any opposed? All right, then we can move on to the
Yes, regular. Yes, so item 5A is to receive a report from the interim director of transit services regarding this month's operational, financial, and other relevant activities, and this will be presented by Javier Baños.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have a good agenda today, so I'll keep my comments short. First of all, you will receive, of course, the weekly management reports that I submit. And again, as always, feel free to follow up. Contact me, email, phone if you want additional information on those reports. I usually try to cover 6, 7, 8 ongoing. Some of them I haven't done that week or the prior week, but I try to keep it as current as possible. Today we had a report, a proposal from Metro, and follow up to that proposal is going to be important for the whole county of El Paso community. Some of the concepts go back about 30 years. In the 1990s, there was a county planning organization planning session to look at establishing a county-wide transportation system. And of course, this was 30 years ago. Since that, there have been incremental movement to accomplish that. And so that may be before us. However, of course, as with everything else, the details is important. We just have to make sure that the details are worked out and that it's beneficial to all parties involved, because the interest is, of course, what's best for the public. The bylaws are not going to be presented today. Unfortunately, we worked on them, but apparently we were able to get them up to you. And so they'll be brought up again in March. We've been presenting them and fine-tuning them for a couple of meetings. And so hopefully at the next meeting, we'll just be able to review them, send them ahead of time so we can see them, and then we can move forward. At the executive committee meeting, one of the suggestions that was raised was that the regional planning committee, the regional planning committee that's funded at the tech site, be invited to be an ex officio member of this board, because it also works in the same concept of having communication, cooperation, collaboration between all the parties. WETEC primarily also brings in the social service agencies, important component. And the mission statement of the West Texas El Paso Regional Planning Committee is very similar. It simply says, quote, promote collaboration between transportation providers and human health service organizations so that persons serve, experience, and improve quality of life. And so hopefully that'll be happening in the next month and a half or so. And then a major requirement in the bylaws is something that we're going to be facing in the near future. Besides the annual report that is coming on the annual report, the bylaws also call for an annual audit to be done. And this is to be done by a third-party audit firm. And so we have to begin working to work out the details as to how we're going to accomplish it. Going through the process of releasing a request for bids, an RFP, from different audit firms, and working through the mechanics, certainly working with, of course, the county auditor's office, and that will be involved. But that's another major administrative function that we need to begin working on. It'll take a a couple of months to get those wheels in motion to be able to be in a position so that at the end of this fiscal year, we will be able to have that third-party audit completed as per the bylaws. And another administrative action that's underway is to file a formal request to obtain a designated doing business as a DBA. As we've been doing business as ETA, Paso Transportation Authority. And of course, we are a LGC, Local Government Corporation, and our corporate name is EPATS, Paso Area Transportation Services. But we've been doing business as ETA, so it's time for us to look at formally getting the DBA designation as the Paso Transportation Authority. And then just finally, the annual report, which has been distributed. I've distributed about close to 100 copies. All the towns, cities, and village received 10 copies. County attorney, the county's office, city council is going to get copies as well. The city of Socorro is sending that packet as well. They'll find them. Eventually, we'll be sending about 60 to 70 more to groups like the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Council of Governments, the Regional Mobility Authority, and then social service agencies that are involved, like with the Regional Planning Group. There's 3 that have been involved in the process to have eligibility for persons seeking transportation to transit services. Those are Center San Vicente, and Molar, Center for Independent Living. So besides them, other social service organizations will receive a copy of the annual report. And so annual reports are supposed to have 3 components. One is, of course, a listing of the policymakers. Of course, we not only list, but we have focus on the board of directors. And then another important component is the financial information. We only have the revenue in this particular one because, as I mentioned, the overall expenses have been a little challenging to put together because, again, we're just starting out. And once the audit annual report, you'll have a good report on the expenses of the corporation. And then the third part is programmatic information. Who are we? What do we do? And so hopefully we were able to capture as much information here so that the reader can get a good idea as to what ETA is doing. And so, if any of you need any more copies or want any more copies, just send me an email and we'll make sure you get them. I'm sure you'll also notice in the back cover the seals for the village and town, the cities that make up the board. And there's been discussion a lot about giving this a little bit more visibility. And I think there has been discussion about putting some of the seals in the shelters that are going to be built, so that individuals in your cities, your communities, waiting for the bus, they'll see the shield for the seal for their community. And it'll be a reminder for them that your communities are participating not only as a member of the board of directors, participating financially by providing some financial support to the delivery of services by ETA. If there's any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Van Hammes, for the update and all the work you've done and for putting together this annual report. It's really informative. There's a lot of great information in here and gives a good overview of ETA and all of the work that has happened over the last, especially in the last 6 months since you've been on board. I saw on page 12 of the annual report, it says grants in progress, and just to make the board aware that the El Paso County Attorney's Office is tracking very carefully discussions happening at the federal level in terms of impacts to grants and what that might mean for both ongoing grants and future grants for communities like El Paso. Not positive or good news, but still optimistic that we can continue doing our work with minimal disruptions to our funding. So if anything material happens with grants, we'll be sure to let the board know as we hear from the county attorney's office on that. But just so you know that we are tracking that very carefully and are watching as these discussions happen in Washington. So Any questions for Mr. Bañuelos or comments? Thank you.
All right, so this will now take us to 5B. This is for the board to receive a presentation from the executive committee regarding potential partnerships with Sun Metro. And I'm sorry we didn't discuss this earlier on, but is this item going to stay open session or executive session?
No, I believe we'll stay open.
Thank you, Mr. Runkus and De Kaiser for meeting with Mr. Bañuelos and I, was it last week or 2 weeks ago now?
One of those.
One of those. It's been a long month, you know, for everyone. And before I go on, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and express our sympathies and concerns for the accident that happened at Sun Metro a couple of weeks ago, and for everything that your organization has gone through recently. I hope you know that the county is here as a resource or anything that you might need to go. But thank you for meeting with us and for offering the proposal. I know that that's been shared with the board members, and you're going to go over it now. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions and discussion, but we can just jump into it now and get into questions afterwards. So go with that.
Okay, so good afternoon, board. My name is Carl Rimkus. I'm the Special Projects Manager with Sun Metro, so I'll go ahead and review our proposal, and then we're here to field any questions or comments you have. So our proposal involves being able to offer EPATs in the county turnkey fixed route service. This may seem like we're coming a little bit out of left field, but concerning the RFP that was issued recently, we were engaged in contract renegotiations regarding our paratransit. So at that point in time, we were not sure whether we were going to have the resources and ability to make this offer. On a positive note, we did resolve those the contract renegotiations that we were going through, which did free up the resources that we knew we were going to be able to offer. We have been working on the proposal, but we had to hold on to it to make sure everything lined up right. So I understand the timing's a little bit awkward with the RFP that went out, but we would like to make this proposal in hopes that it does make sense to partner, as Mr. Bañuelos said a minute ago, in the interest of a single service provider for all of the transit in the El Paso area. So in the turnkey fixed route service, we would maintain the current ETA routes and schedules. That would still all be set by the board. We in our proposal, it includes a fixed rate cost and a variable rate cost, as was published in the RFP that was put out. So we do have those cost metrics. And then one big advantage of partnering with Sun Metro is that we could do this through an interlocal agreement. We can agree on terms that are amenable to both of us, which is much more flexible than a standard procurement and contract, which is very difficult to amend as facts on the ground change. So it makes a lot of sense in that respect. Next slide. So I think that this slide here is probably one of the most important aspects of what Sun Metro brings to the table. As opposed to a third party that might be awarded a contract for fixed route service who has a headquarters in Dallas or Cincinnati or somewhere across the country that is really servicing a national customer base. We're here in El Paso, right up the street. We have our own team. Almost 600 employees work for Sun Metro. Our executive team, we have 6 people in the office of the director, a director, 3 assistants, and then 2 other executives in finance and myself in special projects. These 5 areas that affect any transit operation the transit operations, the maintenance, the facility maintenance, the customer service, and all the admin and planning that goes into it. We're already doing this on a daily basis, and so we're not reinventing the wheel. We can take your routes in and your operations in and fit them into our existing staffing. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of the different positions that we have dedicated to our own operations that would also be serving EPATs if you choose to partner with us. Next slide. So this is a slide that shows on the left-hand side what ETA is providing and then what Sun Metro is offering. So ETA is providing the vehicles with fare boxes and cameras, is our understanding. Those are already installed. Sun Metro would be responsible for preventive maintenance, minor and major repairs, exterior washing, interior cleaning and disinfection, fuel and fueling service. I'll come back to that in the upcoming slide. Towing, support vehicles, and any tablets and software used to communicate with the drivers and things like that. So these are all things that we currently perform on our own equipment, our own buses, and so we would be providing the same service for ETA. Okay, next slide. The stops and the shelters, we would expect ETA to be procuring and installing any shelters, whether they're signs, benches, shelters, and then we have a crew that maintains and cleans the shelters and install, maintain, and replace the bus stop signs. So we could handle the signs and the maintenance, and then we would expect ETA to install the original shelters from scratch. From a Sun Metro perspective, this is something we already do. The difference in this would be just the geographical area that we're serving is more extended. So we most likely have a crew dedicated to servicing the outlying areas, or if we're using our existing, have a priority call that we can dispatch somebody quickly to one of, because complaints come in, something might have happened to a shelter. Sadly, and you'll find this as soon as you start installing these very expensive shelters, somebody's going to take a wrong turn and run into one. So depending on that, you know, we may be able to do the maintenance, or worst case scenario may need a new installation, but we're certainly there to make sure that we're the boots on the ground, can report back, and then if there's anything per the agreement that needs to take action from there, we'd be able to follow that. The next slide, please. So as far as the relationships that we already share between the city and county, between Sun Metro and county and ETA, we have an interlocal affair agreement. That's an agreement that's used by the Council of Judges for jury duty, court-ordered rehab, things like that. And so we have an arrangement with the county for that. We have a CNG fueling contract. So for those transit vehicles that use CNG, you fuel up at our Montana top location. So that's a separate agreement. You all have a transit license with us that allows you to utilize 4 of our transit facilities and the location that will house the EV project that you're working on to install the 6 or 7 chargers at the West Side Transit Center. And then, as you know, we recently executed the Paratransit Services Interlocal Agreement, which is, you know, had some challenges getting there, but I think it's a model of how to have that seamless, customer-friendly service to where both parties clearly know what their responsibilities are. So those are 4 existing agreements. And then cooperative efforts. We appreciate the membership on the board as an ex officio member. And as I mentioned a minute ago, we are partnering on the West Side Transit EV project. So there is some opportunity for a little bit of streamlining. If you go with a third-party contractor for this, they're going to have to maintain a lease for a maintenance facility separately. There's going to be some cost built into the bid for that. They won't have direct control over it, most likely, unless they already have their own facility, which is probably unlikely. You won't need that with us. There's no vulnerability there. And then there's an opportunity that the separate agreement for CNG fueling would go away because we're including the cost of the fuel in our cost proposal. So in theory, you may not need that second agreement. So there's some streamlining opportunities there. Next slide. So this is the cost breakdown. And if you haven't done a lot of work with transit related contracts, these numbers may not mean a whole lot to you, but they are, I can give some explanation to it. So the fixed rate cost, which would be 1.4, these are for FY26. So 1.45 million would be the fixed rate cost. And this is regardless of how many revenue hours are undertaken that year. This is just the base rate, you might say. The variable rate cost is $83.57 per revenue hour. So I believe your RFP called for approximately 43,000 revenue hours. So at that, that total, the fixed and the variable would amount to roughly 5.1 million for the first year. My understanding is the existing contract does not have a fixed rate. Everything's rolled into a variable rate cost. So it's not an apples to apples comparison when you look at the existing contract, although you can look at the existing cost that the county's been paying for this service, total cost, and look at what we're paying. As we know, the last few years of inflation, post-COVID, that put a lot of pressure on the system with inflation from everywhere, from fuel, salary raises, all kinds of expenses on parts. The vehicles themselves have gone up in cost. So whatever was negotiated pre-COVID area versus now, you're going to see a significant increase. One of the reasons we went through our own contract renegotiations is because we don't want to put the new RP out on the street. We know it's going to be significantly more than we've been paying in the past if we have to put that, whenever we have to put that out to bid. So there's obviously an annual cost adjustment depending on, and this may deviate a little bit from the way the RFP was written, but within the scope of the interlocal, we could mutually agree to what an annual cost escalation would be, a percentage rate, so that there's not a need to have to continually see either amendments made, or unless it's necessary, we can agree in advance what a percentage cost annual increase might be. And there's a ramp up cost between now and September 1, which is depending on how many months would be involved and what that would entail. We estimated 1.43 million, but that could be less depending on the number of months and what would be discussed back and forth between us as far as what the service would actually look like. So that's just an estimate at this point. So I think that concludes our presentation, and we'll open it up to questions and comments. Okay.
So just to caveat off of what Mr. Rick has said, interim director, this is already in your, in your vision statement, in your goals, to have a regional transit authority. And what we're proposing here doesn't bring us to be a regional transit authority. But what it does do, it brings us many, many, many steps closer. And so what I think has happened here is we're in a space and time where the window has opened to leap us forward into being able to get a lot closer to doing that. And when I say that, I say, if you look at what we're trying to do in this operation, we have to deal with software, we have to deal with paratransit, we have to deal with fixed route, we have to deal with the on-demand service. We have the county, the city, and vendors, maybe 2, 3, or 4. We have to do with maintenance operations, facility operations, all these transit stations and interlocals. That's what we're dealing with now. That's how many entities, not to mention all of the different separate entities sitting here, trying to make this regional transit authority happen. Between the entities sitting here and the operations. The more complicated this is going to be is the more entities we have involved in this. If on the operations side, we are trying to move to this regional transit authority and we consolidate this into one piece, the closer we're no, I have that effect, but the closer we're going to get being there and the less complicated it's going to be. Once we get that, then even it'll make the funding piece less complicated, make the operational piece less complicated. There'll be one point, one belly button for all things operational. At least we'll be moving towards that. For our customers, there'll be one time to pay. We won't have to worry about the transfers. It'll be easier for them. They'll have one source to go to when they need transportation issues. It'll simplify things across the greater El Paso area, across the greater El Paso community, the whole county. It'll be easier for all of our riders, which all of our riders right now are all of our riders. We have the same customers, right? And so that's the purpose between this. And we're already intertwined, like Carl said, with the interlocal agreements we have. So in order for you to function, the ETA to function, right, we already have to work together. In order for us, Sun Metro, to function, we already have to work together. Otherwise, the system that's already created is broke down. We're at the crossroads where we can make it better than it is, right? And so I know there's a timeline that we're working with because the RFP is out there. And I know some people might feel like, well, the RFP is out there, we're already so far down the road, but I will submit to you that the RFP is totally under your control. Whether you move forward with the RFP, you halt the RFP, you delay the RFP and explore what we're putting on the table. Because you still have to look at all the eaches. Just because I'm saying all this, don't make it fact. I believe it's fact for sure. But just because I'm saying it, don't make it fact. But give it time to explore all those pieces. And again, Sun Metro already had 8 more routes. We've already done this with no issues. Had 8 more routes, had 10, 20, 5 less, 5 more. We adjust to these things all the time, and we could take it in-house with little to no real adjustments to what Sun Metro does and encompass all of this. And it pushes us towards what we want and what you guys want to happen also. And we're all on the same team. We're all El Paso, whether it's county, city, it doesn't matter. We all have the same customers and we all have the same goal. We said it, you said it. Now, when I talk about the space and time, windows open and close as far as when you can take action to make these things happen. If you honor the RFP, I got it. Like, you have to make the best decision that you make, but you'll close this window for another 3 years, and I don't know what's going to happen in 3 years if the window's going to open up the way that it is now. I've talked to my leadership, and they're on board with this. Things and times change. This is an opportunity for us, transit, I'm talking transit focused individuals right now, to move this ball forward. So that's what I impress upon you, that this is time to strike while the iron is hot, and we can make a difference for it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rickus. Thank you.
I'm a little passionate, but.
Thank you for presenting this proposal. Like I said, when we spoke as an executive committee, it definitely, I think we're in agreement that the ultimate goal of ETA is to be that regional transit provider. That can only happen in close collaboration and partnership with Sun Metro. We're all El Paso County, right? Everybody here. So I agree with you that working towards that end is the reason that we're here today. It's the reason why ETA was established. And we do know that while we do have the RFP that's now closed and in the process of being reviewed, we also have the flexibility to examine an interlocal agreement with the city for these services. Nothing prohibits us from doing that organization. And so I'd like to open up the floor in case there are any questions from board members for San Metro right now.
Not really a question, if I may, Chair, more a point of clarification. So while this proposal is being shared with ETA, it's the Commissioners Court ultimately right now that is the deciding body that would back this in. The county is the body that's issued the RFP. Our purchasing agent is reviewing that along with the review committee, and the Commissioners Court would be the deciding body on awarding the RFP or determining next steps here. And I think this is just because our service remains in this evolution, and right now as we continue to evolve ETA and stand up on its own legs, this part here, these services are still vested in the county's structure, right? And so I think our role as ETA would be to consider what this information is, to the extent that we can, and we need to coordinate with our purchasing agent in the county to figure out how we can evaluate this proposal for an interlocal agreement against those that have been received under the seal of the RFP process with ETA, and then allow ETA to make a recommendation to the Commissioners Court on what the next steps should be, right? So, but I do think though, so that's just a little bit of logistical process that we need to figure out. But I will, I think, echo the comments of Commissioner Butler and Mr. that we've been working toward this. This is, I think we have a very great opportunity to partner between local governments like we've ever had before. On recent times, leadership across all local governments has brought us to this point here with transit, and I think this is the most bright example and shining example of local government partnership and cooperation that this community is seeing, and it's transit. Because when it comes to other topics and other challenges and other issues that we face, we haven't been able to come to terms and come to the table at the same time between the city, the county, the regional cities, and municipalities. But for whatever reason, transit has been the step in that direction. And I think we want to continue to build upon that to the greatest extent that we can. So there's a lot of details to figure out, a lot of the partnership and financial details that we need to understand and evaluate. But I think we want to make sure that we empower the executive committee to continue to have those discussions, evaluate those things, and then let us figure out how we can share some of the information about what the RFP is looking like so that we can make an informed and collected decision.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm just gonna switch to my screen. Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on then to 5C. And we will be requesting we can table this item. This was to take action on the proposed bylaws revisions that ETA staff was going to present.
Distributing a motion to delete that item?
I think it happened in the past, so we can do that. That'd be great.
Okay, I'll make a motion to delete.
Like the table.
I think in the past we've tabled, but if you would like to delete, so we'll do the motion to delete. So I have a motion to delete from Commissioner Butler.
And the second from Mr.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you for that. Our next agenda item will be 5D, and this is to discuss and take appropriate action on the reappointment of members to the Access Advisory Committee. And what I will do now is show you all. You have that on your agenda, but these are the committee members that are part of that group. And we're asking for you all to, once again,
Chair, if you'd be okay with it, make a motion for the reappointment as recommended by staff.
before I even get to show you. Okay, got it.
Page 10 of the annual report is a summary of the Access Advisory Committee, what they do.
If I might just add a little bit of context, I think they've been incredibly engaged, and I know that they've worked closely with staff on launching 88 paratransit service. And so to me, I think if they've volunteered their time, they've been engaged, they've been committed, and staff is recommending that, I feel comfortable with their reappointment. It's the motion.
Motion from Mr. Mondavis. Second from Ms. Cookie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
My add discussions that happened with the Access Advisory Committee was that perhaps on a quarterly basis or 3 times a year, the chairperson can come before the board to make a presentation to share what they're doing and give you an idea as to what they're doing as far as the work they do for us. So if that's agreeable, it's not something we have to be voted on. It's just extend an invitation to them.
Thank you.
Okay, then we'll move on to agenda item 5E. Discuss and take appropriate action to allow the Rio Grande Council of Governments and ETA Transit Director, through consultation and approval from the chair, to purchase items necessary to meet the ATA's operational needs. And so I'll go ahead and just provide a little bit of context for this item. From time to time, there might be items requested for purchase that are not within the guidelines of current grants that are being administered by ETA staff. And so if this would be allowable, it would be to purchase items such as those, for instance, if we needed to purchase lunch because we're going to have a long meeting for the board, that would be an expense. Membership to professional organizations, associations for ETA staff. And so we would like for you all to consider to give us some flexibility in that. When speaking to legal counsel, the thought was maybe to go up to a $500 threshold. And if that were allowed, that would be coming from the custodial account that we manage for you all, which is part of the contribution.
Chair, if I might, so we were discussing materials for the board, as Ms. Gutierrez described, but also even polos and other things that kind of promote awareness of everything. And so while some of that may not be allowed by the grant for board members, but it would be allowed for staff. This allows us to ability to promote brand, right, as we've discussed the need to do so.
And with costs the way they are now, items such as the one Mr. Lombardo mentioned, maybe 500 might be a little short to get to that cost, but I know Mr. Estrada was just concerned with going higher than that, but
What a $1,000 threshold for best. How does the board feel about?
And in some instances, there might be, some of the grants may have something. Take furniture just as an example. A particular grant may allow, say, $3,000, $1,000 for furniture. But there may be a need to purchase $4,000 for furniture. So in order to make that happen, we could use the grant money first, of course, and then if there's a tap into the other source, then we can do that. Or computer equipment, office equipment. We're going from 2-step versus that we had before. We're starting a new person in 2 weeks, and then there's still another position that will be started in about 2 months, 3 months, not coming to Mr. Andrews' position. And so the impact of that in operations is such that this will be very beneficial.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
Commissioner Bradley, we have a first motion from Ms. Badillo and a second from Mr. Rubio. And I forget, would you like to take one? or do you like me to keep?
Okay, sorry.
All right, so then, all those in favor? Say aye. Opposed? All right, so then motion will carry, and we're gonna go up to $1,000. All right, so next item, which is item 5F, this is to discuss and take appropriate action on Barracuda Public Relations Services Consulting Agreement and amendments to include proposed TTI task order. So on your tablets, you do have the proposed task order for TTI, and the purpose of this of this proposal is to continue additional work for the paratransit services, as well as the advisory access, the access committee. So the total amount that Barracuda would be requesting is the $22,280. I wanted to also inform you of where we are with Barracuda, and I believe Diego Costa is on the line. He was going to be participating virtually, but as of to date, between the original agreement and the two amendments, just roughly over $185,000 has been allocated to Barracuda for these services. They're already at about $170,000, so we're getting close to them finishing up with the monies they do have available. So if you all were to approve this, this would be a new line of money for this initiative, but it still does not address what other services you would like for them to conduct for the rest of this fiscal year. Perhaps you all would want to task staff with looking at a master agreement and having Barracuda come to you with each specific task, or you can go with what you had approved originally, which was general public relations services. But just wanted to inform you that we are coming towards the end of the funding that's available for this firm.
That funding was allocated this fiscal year?
Originally, $90,000 was allocated towards the tail end of 23, and then the $90,000 has been used in 24, but then we provided additional funding for the paratransit services of $72,000, and then there was another $23,000 allocated for Socorro. So that's where we come up to 185 yearly. And Dave, is there anything else that maybe I'm missing here that you would like to mention as well?
Not to my knowledge.
And this one here, I think that's another thing is that Mr. Vinales and I have been talking about with TTI. They're already being paid out of funds from the grant to provide the services for paratransit in terms of all of the administration that's involved. But with regard to the public relations, there's not a funding source identified under that task order. So that's where the request came from TTI to work with Barracuda to continue that effort. So this would be just a new round of meetings. I think you can see in the agreement, it outlines what services they would provide, which includes the social media ad budget, translation, social media strategist, preparing a video, and doing graphic design, and then also providing the local work, which was the meetings that will be coming up for the paratransit services. Because this is all part of the requirements that ETA has to undergo as required by the grant. Well, this would be funded through ETA monies, the contribution monies.
But it's required for compliance with
Yes.
paratransit, but it's not grant funded.
It's not grant. And if it is grant funded, the request has been made to come through ETA to continue that service with Barracuda, because ETA is the one who has the agreement with Barracuda, not on Paso County. So the funding is with ETA, the agreement is with ETA, so the natural, I guess the thought process was then to continue that effort services in terms of the that was outlined in the proposal.
Outside of the scope of the initial agreement, then
Yes,
completely separate part.
Well, and see, here's where I think we need to tidy up our processes. You could consider this just a general public relations services as the original agreement intended, but now we're being a lot more defined in terms of specific, which is going to specifically address TTI's request. And I don't know if you have any more to say about the task order that's under, Jesus, do you have any more to say about the task order that's under TTI with the county?
I'm not familiar with that task order. I think I'm not familiar with the other task order. I'm not familiar with this task order. Sorry.
Well, the current task order has to do with general public demand response. That's the last piece of the whole contract with TTI. Paratransit services was part of it, and a number of projects that they've done for us. The last one is general public demand response, and that's something that's to start. Actually, has started already. A lot of the planning that has occurred, and this is to extend transportation services beyond paratransit services, and of course beyond fixed route. And so this is the last piece of it. But in doing it, TTI is planning to have pop-up meetings, community meetings, surveys, for example, get out there and find out what the need is from the constituents that are going to be served. And so in order to need, they're asking for the funding to be able to market and promote this particular activity. And so that money will be used by, part of it will be used by Barracuda to promote the task order number 10, which is this one, the implementation of general public response. But you mentioned that that's one of the pieces that's in the current proposal that has been submitted. Because the current proposal that has been submitted that's out there that's being reviewed included the regular routes that we have with paratransit services, the new service that there's another process that's called the eligibility component. And this is a piece where an entity is going to be evaluating the applications that are received by persons who are seeking paratransit services. Because just because somebody says, I want to get paratransit services doesn't mean that we automatically do it. They have to go through an eligibility process. And there's a process to put out the requirements, or it's ADA, that an entity review the applications and verify this individual qualifies. Most of the time they do, but nonetheless it has to happen. And so that's a third component in this current article. And then the fourth one is the implementation of general public demand. So this is taking transportation beyond what we're providing them. Whether it's done, it'll be coming back to you, no doubt, once this whole process is complete, to the board to determine whether we do continue to move forward or not. Because the projected long-range costs is something that I think is still part of what's going to be determined by this task order that TTI is starting. And so part of the Barracuda's involvement in marketing and promoting. One of the situations that also occurs is that with Barracuda, it's a great firm, it's a wonderful firm, they're always there to be supported. When we needed to get some support and so forth, we reach out to them. They do provide it. Whether it's, for example, helping us with the printing or other support, such as getting this information out to the public through press releases. I mean, that's time that's billable, time they do, and of course, they bill for that. So.
There's a question of, this is a new task that's unfunded, but with the existing agreement contract for the general services, does that have a capacity to it? Not counting the funding, but is there a contract? So they have to.
Yeah. And I think that the agreement is general enough to where these things, this proposal would fall under it, but in some instances, we've been task oriented where it's a specific project and here's a dollar amount, and then other times it's been generalized. So I think that's where maybe staff would want direction how you would want to proceed moving forward. But I think that the other, to answer also your Commissioner Butler's question is, I think if Barracuda does not go forward with this, then it still gets tasked with ETA staff to do the outreach, and we all know what that used to be like before we we have this availability. So it's still gonna have to be done. It's just a matter of how far reaching we want to be.
I was gonna ask that question, right? So the activity that Barracuda would support and engage in is not required by the grant. TTI is going to be the one hosting and facilitating those meetings. It's the promotion of it, right? And I know that we used Barracuda previously for the paratransit meetings that we held. I attended 2 of them, one in Montana Vista and one in Calafio. Had really sparse attendance. I mean, just, you know, and I just think it's by, you know, I think the people who were there were the volunteers that we just reappointed on the access committee. And I think there's often a thought that, you know, like speaking from the county, like we need support to engage. I just think there's some topics that are inherently not engaging to the public. And we're gonna struggle either way. And so I would feel more comfortable letting us continue to use Barracuda on like really focused items like I think the Socorro reduction of service is a huge priority for us. I think these more administrative items, we can rely on the wonderful and talented staff of the county's communications divisions and then our collective administrations as different members of the board and reserve that funding for more strategic messaging and like kind of not crisis messaging, but when we really need that focus to be a little bit more thoughtful and deliberate. On this one, it sounds a little bit more routine. I think we can handle it in a similar fashion as we have some of our other engagements. And that way we can reserve the funding for more complex issues, but as opposed to please come attend this meeting. And that's not a shot at all at Barracuda. I mean, I think, you know, Dave, you all are doing great work for us and wouldn't be making the strides we are without everyone working together, and Barracuda is a big part of that. I just think we want to make sure that we focus our use of you all to things that we can't necessarily, that I think we would do, that we can handle internally.
So we can work strategic.
Just to jump in real quick also though, some of the items that TTI is requesting from us on this are items that are beyond just public relations. They also go to design of some of the, like the design and printing the paper surveys, designing and creating like a tablecloth so that when they do these pop-ups, they have a tablecloth with DTA branding and then like a flag that says we want your opinion. So it's also some graphic design and social media stuff that they're requesting.
I want to chime in. Sorry, I want to apologize. I'm going to chime in, Dave, because I know even though the tablecloth was requested, we're not going to be able to get that before we have our public outreach in a few weeks. So we could probably scratch that. I know in the end was probably best to just do ETA logo and a tablecloth, essentially. But I also want to point out that some things that we can do in-house is printing. So printing some of our things can be done in-house with our purchasing department. And if we utilize internal resources, we could do some cost savings there as well.
I think it's unfortunate TTI cannot be here with us today because they had a meeting, in-person meeting at the College Station, but maybe perhaps this is a good lesson for all of us to understand what the board's desire is, because I think that everything has been a great need, so everything has seemed to be worthwhile and necessary, but I think that probably there is maybe some assumptions made that this can continue on, so we're getting direction from you and moving to go straight forward in terms of how we proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we did the first round of meetings, I mean, that was a brand new service line. We wanted to like not just promote and meet the needs of promoting the meetings as required by law, but we also wanted to promote awareness of the service, right? And so in this instance, these are not, I think they're routine. We have to do them. We have to have them. And I think we can work on something very straightforward and let the more complex tasks be handled by them.
So with that being said, they will be out of Maine very soon. And so, what direction would you like to give staff in terms of what kind of agreement you would want next month, or how would you want ETA to handle PR and marketing efforts?
Did we, when we first hired Barracuda, did we put out an RFP for marketing services?
I believe the board heard from several firms, presentations, and so I don't know if it was a formal process, but there was presentations made and you all made the decision at that point. Is that correct?
Yes, it was an informal RFP. LGCs have flexibility with procurement when it comes to spending non-state funding, and so all of this is paid through the local contributions that we give to the COG, and so that those local dollars don't have the state and federal grant strings attached to them. So we were able to just do a pretty quick interview process with a few firms. Same thing with legal services, right? So those tasks that are paid for with local dollars was a pretty quick agreement with ETA. But if we wanted to expend grant funds on it, we would have to ensure that we satisfied procurement. We couldn't just do an informal RFP the way that we did with this. We would have to have a competitive process, or perhaps use cooperative services through Region 19 that I know Barracuda is part of.
And you're not, since this was informal, you're not limited on the amount you can amend and increase the.
Yeah, because the whole idea behind LGCs with regard to their flexibility in procurement is that if there's local money involved, we can move forward as quickly as you want with procurement on goods and services, with the exception of design and construction services. You can't build a road without going through a competitive process, but there is an intent for this to be a corporation or a business that runs a little bit more efficiently.
So it sounds like the takeaway is to try to increase the capacity of the existing contract, but put more scrutiny on what's assigned out as a charge billable to that.
And I don't know what you all would want. I would think that if you had buckets, then there would be one for general PR, where just a little bit of everything can fall under there, or then you also have your other buckets that are much more well-defined, like the Socorro outreach fund, and in this instance, the general demand response that I said in Parent Transit, but it was part of that. So however you all want to do it, but I know that we definitely, in the COG in managing the funds, we definitely need to be more careful in terms of how we're assigning the cost to ensure that all of the funding is being used specifically for what functioning improvement. Because in some areas, it could be generalized, but then, so we just need to categorize those costs per task.
But perhaps that could be part of an amendment to the agreement to just clarify those.
Right, or have a broader contract.
Yeah.
That is more like a fee for service type, where it's just very flexible in terms of what we're asking for different scenarios.
Well, I think the agreement was like that. It was very flexible, but then when we had the paratransit initiative, the board asked for a specific budget for that one function.
Yeah.
And then Socorro became another specific budget. So then we can keep it in that way, or general, and it's just a matter of not making sure we don't go over the amount.
Sounds like a lot more internally on how what the board would like to have Barracuda do.
Yeah.
I mean, because whatever the task is going to come with a proposed amount.
Right.
If staff asks for that, so you know up front, and the board can say it makes sense. But it sounds like the contract itself allows for that. It's more like internally how we're communicating back and forth.
I also like to think that we need this task, for example, is coming out of the local funds. The local contribution is needed for other things. And so I think that's where some of my concern lies in moving forward with the amendment. But we knew that this was a task that could be covered under the grant. I know that perhaps our next steps are evaluating, sort of Mr. Mayales, to you and the team, confirming with TxDOT what promotional marketing activities and services are allowed under the grant, and then working with county purchasing to perhaps have a separate agreement for some of those activities that are directly related to like this one. I think the grant would have probably covered it, but I wouldn't feel comfortable authorizing or asking for the grant to reimburse it because I know we didn't go through that competitive process. But if we can have that in place, that allows the grant funds to cover some of these expenses. And again, I believe that Barracuda is on the Region 19 cooperative and the county participates in that. So we would satisfy procurement through that method, and it would still be a pretty straightforward method. So I think if we had some of those options and then evaluating the discussion we're having here and bringing back some information in the next couple of meetings.
We can do that again. I mean, visit with TTI or Luna and come back to you all with perhaps fixed concrete figures. What it would cost to implement that test market as far as marketing and promotion.
I know that the service plan that TTI created does have marketing in there. In that, I have to go back right now, look at my document to see how much that amount is allocated for. But would you want us to? Do you want to direct us to then come back to you with an agreement with that amount, like it to be a new agreement, or just continue to amend the current agreement you have with Barracuda?
I think what we'd like to see is options, right? So if, options both using grant funding and the funding. What are some of our limitations with each? What would a proposed budget look like for each? And then what that process would be. And maybe we go through an exercise of starting to think about the next year and what some of those marketing needs might be. Whatever, for example, whatever route or we choose for the fixed route provider, we'll want to market that, right? And especially if we enter interlocal to promote that. So just looking forward, what do we anticipate our marketing needs will be, and then how do we structure an agreement so that we're able to quickly respond and put out fires.
And Reina's still on the line, I think. Reina, is there anything that you would want to add in terms of the current agreements that the county is administering with regard to marketing, public relations, things that Barracuda has been doing on the ETA side?
I think that's why, I mean, only just to reiterate that we do have internal resources, right? So printing things can be done in-house, and we wouldn't have to ask Barracuda to do that and utilize their materials and whatnot. So if we're doing that, that can take away some of those expenses, and we have cost savings. It's just different resources we might be able to use within the county before actually going out and asking Barracuda. We do have a communications department, so it's also possible to ask them to help in getting the word out and quote unquote marketing, as opposed to going straight to Barracuda.
Right, basic design services we can do in-house. We have all of the basic design components that we have resources that we can use.
But internally, to your point, maybe one of the recommendations is a set of criteria. So what would go into that? What would be billable to that? So is it going to use grant funds? Is it something staff can't do? Is it a targeted one-time thing? And then if it meets all those criteria, it's going to go under that contract, and then it's just a matter of funding.
Right.
And if it's not going to meet those criteria, then we have a second contract available for.
Yeah. So I think what would be helpful, and maybe next month to see is what are the anticipated needs on the projects we have underway. And then do we feel like it's something that's likely eligible under the grant? might need to confirm with TxDOT and PTN on that. TxDOT says, like this one, for example, could be covered under the grant. Then I think that we need to then start working on having that separate agreement with Barracuda through the county with the cooperative to get that in place. There may be some questions on the county because I know communications is currently under there's an RFP out as well for on-call communication services that the communications division is handling. But in the interim, we might need this to kind of get us by because it's going to take some time. So the Region 19 co-op might be a good option to explore. And then we can evaluate how we deploy grant funds versus the local money for these services. Right? And I know that, for example, I've as we've been preparing for and going through the process of the director recruitment and announcements and everything else, I've asked Mr. Maniales to work with Barracuda on drafting release and kind of getting us ready to highlight that. And so there is a lot of value in the services that I think that we can tap into because of the recording and the coordination and of media and those types of services. And so that's kind of like the line in the sand for me, that the more strategic messaging outreach we can task Barracuda, and then I think the more straightforward tasks are the ones that are covered under the grant. We need to also make a decision, are those tasks that we want staff to work on using internal resources, or are those items that we still want Barracuda to do? But if we do, then we're going to need to make sure that we have all the agreements in place to satisfy them, because what we have now won't satisfy the state grant requirements. It's a little complex, but I think we need to make that distinction between the two and then kind of go from there.
We'll come back to the board next time.
I like the idea of staff helping us, like was finding us cost savings. And then they would know, right, when we see the products and give us a recommendation as to do it in-house. Sure.
I do want to point out that, and Dave will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one part that will be difficult to undo for sure will be the administration of the website, because Barracuda has started that process. They're in the midst of renewing the license for the website. And so I just wanted to point that out, because there's any thought about that in terms of perhaps tasking that with ETA staff. Right now it's all in the hands of Barracuda.
Yeah, right now the process is, if we need something updated on the website, the ETA staff gives me the request, and I either send the request into Spectrum, or if it's something that I can do easily without crashing the website, then I take care of it.
We don't have a separate agreement just for website maintenance and operations?
I believe that it's part of the Spectrum agreement they have. I believe it's part of the contract, right, Annette?
Yeah, that was one of the deliverables with the original agreement.
Maybe we should roll that out into a separate agreement. Or I think that's just a best practice to have a separate line item that just his website maintenance.
Something else.
I'm sorry, Dave?
Something else. So I was gonna say something else just to keep in mind in regards to the TTI task order is that they want to begin doing the surveys in March, mid-March. I do have a spreadsheet of deliverables for phase 1 that they're asking for that I can share with ETA staff, and then maybe they can determine what they need our help from on that end.
Okay, that would be fine, David.
Okay, I'll share that spreadsheet with you.
Thank you.
And as a last resort, with some metros partnering with us.
Yeah, Carl said it's a metro would cover the whole bill. Right?
It's a little different.
no action on item F?
You have the direction.
Okay.
Yes.
No action. We'll move on to item 5G. This is to discuss options and next steps for preparing the FY25, and I apologize, should have been the FY26 service plan, financial plan, and contribution amounts. So TTI is not here with us today, but we're trying to get ahead of the game and ask for you all to give staff direction in terms of whether you would like for TTI to come back and bring you a proposed task order to start the process for the next fiscal year's amounts.
Yes.
And I think still having an estimated cost on what the city of Socorro's area might be is helpful. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is they have a consultant that is working on developing a plan, and that plan is going to have a cost attached to it to potentially stand up a transit system. And I think if they continue to evaluate, I think it would be a disservice for us to not let them know this is what the option is with ETA versus standing up a completely new system and new service, right? So that helps their leadership make an informed decision on how they'd like to proceed, and we continue to leave the door open for them in good faith that we can work together, just like we are with the city, on working towards one single regional transit system.
We have an item coming up next to talk about Socorro, but for the purposes of item G,
We have direction, right? I mean, we have direction on that, so we will need action on this. TTI can come back and bring.
And so do you think in that task order, they can also consider the potential for the city contribution from the city for, in case we're able to go down the road of getting a voting?
Yeah, it's gonna be a complicated one, right?
Well, now's the time to start talking.
Right, no, absolutely. I mean, I think and part of that financial discussion is that a financial plan is gonna be what the potential 5307 amount looks like, because we've been working on the full reporting for, I believe we're in our second year. And I know that right now you've been working on that reporting. Are we in our second year on that, to NTD?
Yes, second fiscal year, and we're in the third year of reporting.
So then,
Fiscal year 25 is our third year that we'll be reporting.
so at this point we can start, so I think it makes sense to start having that discussion. And I know that the LGC is one vehicle to discuss the 5307 funding and what that looks like. So, and for the board, the 5307 funding is, Sun Metro is the designated recipient for the region on that, but the reporting that other agencies do can affect the amount of funding that Sun Metro receives. And there's a policy that the NPO has put into place to allow other entities to receive their proportionate share of that funding. And so participation in an LGC is one of those. So I think it's very fitting, right, that Sun Metro has an interest in discussing joining the LGC. We have the 5307 discussion coming up the next year or so. So it all aligns really well, I think. And I know that Harrison from the NPO is on. So with those comments, Harrison, if you're listening, Raina just confirmed that we're starting our third year, so we may be working with you and Sun Metro on next steps on that funding request.
Is that an appropriate item to add to TTI's next task or study that for us?
Yeah, I mean,
Recommendations.
Well, we have done the study for 5307 funds. I don't know if that's what you're asking, but we have done a study already on whether we should be receiving 5307. Is it just better for us to just get the 5311 or both? But we do have a study that's been completed by TTI on these two funding sources.
Yeah, and Raina, I think the question is more, is it appropriate to include it in the financial plan development? And I think the answer is yes, because it's another revenue source that that helps continue to expand service, right? So that affects the local contribution. But to Rena's point, the county did commission a study to evaluate whether it was worth it, because there may be some effect on the amount of 5311 formula funding that the county receives, but TTI determined in that study that it was still advantageous for us to pursue the funding. So all that said, yeah, I do think I think the timing's right to include that and the city of El Paso and figuring out how we can discuss membership for everyone.
Because I recall I think we're referencing the study that was commissioned before that showed, like, for example, if Socorro was in the group or not, this would be the metrics. If it wasn't. So maybe this could be an opportunity to add El Paso and there's an option with that cost metric, and that would also potentially reduce the other members. I don't know how the formula would work.
Yes, sir.
But not to divert too much from the original topic, but we're eager to join as full members, and the resources we can bring to bear, just having this Barracuda discussion as full members, I think would benefit the board overall. So we're eager. What that dollar amount would be, the discussion board.
We would, with you giving us direction to ask TTI to prepare the task order, you're several months earlier than what you looked like last year. So that way TTI will address the concern of entities going into their budget sessions already having that event.
And this would be 2026, right?
Yes, 2026. Yes, ma'am.
What's the timeline for TTI to bring that task order back?
They can bring it, I think you can bring it back in March. I believe that I think we can have it ready for March for you all to look at the cost and what would be included.
But then more so the delivery,
the turnaround.
the deliverable.
Reina, do you recall?
Yes. He said he wanted to start now since we all are going into budget season within the next couple months, but that probably getting those first numbers wouldn't occur until June.
That's still.
And I think, I think honestly, we need to start executing these
Earlier.
October so that we have a number by March, because the county's budget process will begin next month, right? And I think that holds true for most of us. I think by the summer, it's already done. Like the revenue estimate, everything is just formalized, but all of the planning that goes into it starts in the spring.
The cities, towns, and the village, they all pretty much the same time frame as well.
So would it be appropriate then to add that as far as a membership for Sun Metro under G? Because we are talking about contribution amounts and the plan.
Yeah, no, it would be, right? Because the city of El Paso has expressed an interest in becoming a member through and it's required for them to have a financial contribution. So we'll need to figure out what that could look like.
Well, I think we can definitely have the conversation with Michael Wonk and see if possibly there's any possibility to have this presented in March and have it accelerated where it's possibly by May.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's no action then required for this one, Commissioners. So we'll move on to item 5H, and this is to hear from recommendations from Barracuda PR regarding the ongoing public information and outreach for the reduction in services in the city of Socorro. And I think Dave is still with us.
Yes, some said it. My apologies for not being there in person. I'm a little bit sick. So I didn't want to risk getting everybody else sick.
Dave, you look like a DJ.
Would you like me to share my screen so you can see? I sent out a brief last week. I don't know if that was shared with the whole board. If you like, I have it up. I can share screen.
You can share it, Dave, that's fine.
Okay. Everybody got that? So basically, as we all know, as a result of Socorro City Council's decision not to join the ETA, the bus services within the city of Socorro will be eliminated effective June 1st. Currently, of course, the buses are going through Socorro and stopping to pick up people on the two new routes that were, well, not new routes, but the two routes that were updated following the elimination of 84. But these buses will no longer stop. So, and what we've seen in the media over the last few months is Socorro City Council continuing to lay this decision on EPATs or ETA, when in fact it's really their decision to not join ETA. So with that said, I know there was some discussion as regards to having a public meeting in regards to this. Our recommendation is not to necessarily have a public meeting because that, again, like we discussed in the past, involves kind of a back and forth discussion, whereas in this case, there is no discussion because it's out of ETA's hands until Socorro decides to make a decision to reverse their course. So what we would recommend is number one, to continue the paid and organic social media campaign that we began last fall and into the winter. That includes creating social media toolkits that would go out via ETA and county channels and sending them to all the stakeholders as well. And then using paid ads to continue to send out that message that Socorro will no longer be part of ETA and that it is city council's decision to join at any time. Obviously, earned media outreach will continue through press releases, op-eds, etc., to continue that messaging. We found that the paid radio advertisements were very successful last time, especially we only ran ads in Spanish and they were very successful. So we'd like to run targeted ads again leading up to the June 1st service update to again reinforce the message that the ETA's hands are tied here and that it's really a consequence of Socorro City Council's decision. And also, in lieu of doing a public meeting, what we'd like to do is create a public feedback survey and go out into the Socorro community at sort of like pop-ups or any events that they have going on and try and get input from the Socorro public as to whether or not they believe it would be better for Socorro to join the ETA and to provide them with the details and the information that they need to really inform their opinion. And not only would we like to do that via face-to-face, but we'd also like to put that survey online, create QR codes that people could go to fill out the survey online. Let people in all those social media ads and radio ads know that they can voice their opinion online or at any of these pop-ups. We'd also like to send out a mailer again with either the paper form of the survey or a QR code so that people could go online and fill out the survey. I think it was the partnership that we had with all the water utilities on the last round was very helpful. I think we could do that again. Obviously, flyers and QR codes inside the buses so that riders on the buses can voice their opinion. And what we'd really like to happen as a result of the surveys is for then members of the board or ETA staff to go before Socorro City Council prior to June 1st to provide direct and transparent avenue for public input and let them know what the outcome of this survey was. And also, of course, to distribute that information to local media. Things to keep in mind are that, of course, TTI will be also conducting another survey concurrent with this. We do this survey. So that's something to keep in mind. I did talk to TTI to see if it would be possible to somehow combine both surveys, but they don't think that that's feasible at this time. So it would be a separate survey we would be conducting. I'm open up to any questions from the board.
Dave, is there a dollar amount tied to this?
I believe a budget was.
Yeah, I think this was the second amendment, it was 23,800. That's already been approved. That's already been approved, yes.
Does anybody have any feedback or questions for Dave? Do we need to take action on this then?
No, there's no action. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Feel better.
So I guess I just wait for further instructions from staff.
Yes, and in terms of pending items and us evaluating the budget to see exactly where we are with the dollar amounts.
Sounds good. Thank you.
This will take us then to item 5I, and this is discuss and take appropriate action regarding contracted legal services from the El Paso Area Transportation Service, LGC, including evaluating an existing agreement with Kemp Smith and the proposal received from the El Paso County Attorney's Office. I do believe Erica had, there you are, there she is. Yes, she's going to join us virtually. In the, on your tablet, you will see the proposed agreement from El Paso County. And I do believe we have Mr. Daniel Hassel here, also representing Kemp Smith on behalf of Senor Estrada. And so, I don't know if there's anything else about this agenda item, but we have both parties here to answer any questions.
Have all the board members had an opportunity to review the proposed agreement? Did you have any comments, Erica, or would you like us just to ask questions if we have any?
No comments. I think I had met with the board last time you all met. Thank you so much, Chair. Just to give you all a brief that, and the county attorney's office served as the board's original attorney. And so we're familiar with the work of the board. Kemp Smith has been doing a great job. We're transitioning back. I'm happy to answer any questions. If the board chooses to approve the contract today, the next step would be that the county attorney's office would place it on our commissioner's court agenda. Probably not next Monday, we missed the deadline for that already, but the following Monday. And then once the court approves, we would work with Kemp Smith to transition to learn what legal work they've been doing for you, what we need to pick up where they left off.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? County Attorney's Office? Okay, do we take action on this? Yes.
Motion to approve.
So we have a motion from Mr. Landeros to approve the agreement as presented, and a second from Jessica. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will now move on to item 6. This is executive session. We go into executive session, and this is pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074. Discuss the candidates for the El Paso Area Transportation Services, Local Government Corporation, Transit Director of Operations.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry to interrupt. This is Daniel Paso from Kemp Smith, on behalf of Sir. I just wanted to say for the record that we're also going to be going to executive session under section of 551.074 of the Texas Government Codes titled Personal Matters. Thank you.
Can I interrupt? Did we miss the item for Barracuda to present the bus reps?
Yes, that was not on the agenda, Elena.
Oh, no. Okay. Okay.
Make a motion to retire to executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carried. Opposed? All right, so motion will carry. It's 3-3.
Hey, Rebecca.
Would anyone like to make a motion to go back into open session?
So
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're back into regular session. Commissioner Miller, if we may, we would like to go back to agenda item 5A, which is the report for the interim director of accounting services.
we need a motion for that?
I don't know if we need a motion for that. Should we?
Yeah, just be at the 6th.
Okay.
Make a motion to reconsider item 5A.
Motion was set. Second from Andrea Carrillo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And as part of my report, over the last, recently, staff has met with Barracuda on the concept of establishing a brand image for the El Paso Fixed Run program. The current transit program, as for the cover, has ETA access. And so the concept was, should we have to look at something a little bit more engaging, more for El Paso Transit? And so that's been part of the discussion, you know, so I don't know who's going to present, Reina or Jesus?
We're going to have
Or Dave?
Dave Acosta from Barracuda present the items. Bree won't. See.
I will share my screen again. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Okay. So as everybody knows, when Barracuda undertook the job of branding ETA, we determined that there was the overall ETA brand, right? And that there would be two sub brands, which would be ETA Transit for fixed route and ETA Access for the paratransit services. It was requested for us recently to come up with a couple of alternatives for ETA Transit. As Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, be something a little bit more quote unquote El Paso-y, have a little bit more I don't know if it's recognition or just something that wasn't so plain, I guess it's transit so simple. I can tell you that when the name transit was proposed and decided upon, the reasoning behind it was that the ETA brand and logo is the part of the name that is kind of, I guess, I don't know if you want to say fun, but has a little twist to it because of course ETA also means estimated time of arrival as well as El Paso Transportation Authority. And then that the other two sub-brands were just describing what the sub-brands were providing, which is transit, fixed route, and access for paratransit. But we undertook a brainstorm session to come up with some different ideas from different alternatives if you do decide to go away from the transit name. I would also say, keep in mind that all this branding has already been out there in the public. It's already on the website and other places. So I would say do also keep that in mind when you make your decision. If you do decide to change from transit to something else. But the two that we brainstormed internally and had a lot of different ideas, and then we met with staff to kind of narrow it down to two. And these are the two that we came up with, which is ETA Vista, which, as we know, incorporates a little bit of Spanish into it. People are already familiar with the word, whether they speak English or Spanish, so we're not going to run into anything like that. And it is kind of El Paso because it brings to mind the views here in El Paso, which are of course beautiful. And everyone knows the Cielo Vista area, stuff like that, even though it's more towards central, but that was one of the proposed names. And then the second one was ETA Paseo, which again evokes the idea of El Paso and the pass, and also a travel or a trip. So those are the two that we came up with.
May I add? We did come up with the third one, but it's not published. But we did try to come up with ATA Way. And as humorous and as funny as it sounds, I think these are the best.
Wait.
WAY.
Okay.
WAY.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. WAY.
Okay. That is funny. Like that, I think.
Yeah, I like ETA Paseo because it kind of evokes the El Paso and everything else. And, you know, I like branding it something different because ETA Transit just seems a little, transit is all encompassing. Fixed route is what this is. You know, fixed route is transit. Paratransit is transit. And so I think this is a little bit cooler. And I think it falls in line with the fact that we chose ETA access because what's at the heart of paratransit is not access. So I'm good with the Paseo brand for the wraps. So what are I know we're making, if we make a decision today, these new wraps, are these going on the new buses that we're ordering, and are we going to retrofit the rest of the fleet for this?
Yes, so
So both. We're gonna, sorry, we have funding. We have an amendment going with TxDOT right now, and that amendment should be finalized by the end of March, which will be to unwrap and rewrap current fleet. And then what we're going to be doing after today's meeting, starting next week, is to issue a PO for the work to be done on the new buses that we have, which we should be receiving one more bus by the end of this week. And that would be a total of 12 new buses that need to be wrapped.
On that bus sale, doesn't it also translate to like a ride?
Oh yeah,
like a cruising paseo.
Right.
El paseo.
It makes sense.
Vamos al paseo.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know you're.
Could we have done like Ruta 8? Just kidding. Okay, so I think we're good with Paseo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move forward. Thank you.
No, we're not supposed to. No, I think just direction. Correct.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. All right, comments. We are at the tail end of our agenda item. Okay, so we'll go to agenda item 7 now, and this is to discuss and take appropriate action regarding the selection of a candidate for the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation Transit Director position.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you to the board members and to the staff and everybody who has been involved in this process for selecting our first permanent director of ETA. I just have a short statement to make, and then I'm hoping we can introduce our candidate to give a few words. Today is an exciting and pivotal moment for the El Paso Transportation Authority as we take a major step forward in advancing public transit for our region. It is with great enthusiasm that I announce John Ando as our final candidate to serve as ETA's first permanent director of transit operations. John John brings over 20 years of experience in public transit, and throughout his career, he has built, revitalized, and transformed transit systems across the country. Visionary leader with a deep passion for mobility, innovation, and ensuring that public transit works for the communities it serves. His experience in launching and expanding transit services, coupled with his hands-on approach, makes him the right person to lead ETA as we continue to shape a more connected, accessible, and efficient transit system for all of El Paso County. For too long, our community has waited for a transit system that truly meets its needs, one that expands opportunity, enhances mobility, and improves quality of life. Mr. Ando understands that challenge and embraces it. His leadership will help drive ETA's mission forward, ensuring that transit is not just an afterthought, but an essential part of our region's growth and future. With Mr. Ando at the helm, we have an opportunity to turn our vision into reality and create a transit system that works for everyone who relies on it. We're confident that this is just the beginning, and I'm sure that under his leadership, ETA will be a driving force in building a strong Paso County. So we look forward to finalizing the process very soon and officially welcoming Mr. Ando to the ETA and county team. So thank you again, everybody, for your help in this process and for going through this very lengthy but intentional process for finding the right fit for ETA at this moment. So welcome, Mr. Ando. Thank you for being here with us and for traveling to El Paso to join us today. I would welcome you to make any comments if you have any.
Top of the afternoon, everybody. I'm greatly excited to be considered for this role, and my experience and my passion for public transportation, I think we can do amazing things to make ETA a great transit operator here in El Paso County, forge new relationships, and implement additional mobility options. And I look forward to working with the board as well as the staff that is presently keeping ETA going.
So much. We're incredibly excited. This is a huge milestone for the organization, for the county, and for all of our organizations. I'm really looking forward to seeing what we're going to do in these next few years. So I don't know if anybody else has comments, but I'm going to.
I have some here. I just want to take the time to also thank Mr. Gonzalez for all the work he's done. What we're looking for a director. We really appreciate everything.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez, for your service.
If I may, Chair, also to Sylvana, Jesus, and to Daniel Marquez and to Sal Alonso, to Bob Geyer, those other three employees who were not at the county, really laid the foundation, to Bob Schwab, laid the foundation for the county's service to really exist. And Mr. Banales, you've referenced the efforts to get to where we are today. It span back to 1994. And there's been this concerted effort to increase options and access for those residents. And there's been very few people involved up until now. And now we're finally seeing this significant commitment and resource allocation to making transit a priority for so many different communities. Each of our communities that we serve are inherently different from each other, from the challenges that Clint faces with access to the opportunities that we see in the unincorporated areas in Montana Vista, Fayetteville, and Tornillo. It's all coming together nicely, and it wouldn't have been without the work that everyone has done collectively to get here. And so thank you all, and Mr. Mayales, for helping keep us on track and on forward and moving forward. And then, Chair, if I might, if you would recognize the motion, I'd be happy to make it to approve and authorize the selection of John Ando as the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation Director of Transit Operations. Further, authorize the chair to finalize negotiations and execute the employment agreement with Mr. Ando upon final legal review and approval.
Second. All right, so I have a motion from Commissioner Butler. It's great. And second. Did you make?
I made a motion.
You made a motion. Was that your deal? I'm sorry. So the motion from Mr. Longo's, the second from Ms. Carrillo. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. So this will then take us to our last agenda item, which is adjournment.
Before we adjourn, to say something, I would also like to express a lot of thoughts and thanks to Reina and to Jesus, because for the last 7 and 8 years, they've been the ones, and yeah, there've been other staff that come and gone, but they've been here through the 7, 8 years, and they do a lot of the work in the background. We don't see the work because it's done, it's infrastructure, it's writing proposals, it's writing reports, it's sending information reports to the National Transportation Database and the BTN 128 report, all the reports that to us, you know, they're just simple, but to them, it's a lot of work, a lot of effort that goes into it. So a lot of the accomplishments, you really have to give a lot of credit to both Jesus and Raymond.
Thank you.
Mr. Ando, we can't wait to introduce you to the rest of the El Paso transportation community and the greater community as a whole. We know it's going to be probably a few months before you're relocated here and start with us. But in the meantime, we'll do everything we can to share your background and information with key stakeholders so everybody knows you as much as possible by the time you start. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you again for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Your motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries and we're adjourned at 3:39.
Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thank you for everyone online.